Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, a podcast where comedians answer serious questions for as long as possible before instinctively turning them into bits. We talk about what comedy means once you remove the applause, and the odd fact that one good laugh can make several bad decisions feel almost professional. Some answers are thoughtful, some are suspiciously well rehearsed. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 2,000 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is a Canadian-born comedian, writer, and filmmaker whose work moves effortlessly between stand-up stages and film sets. She's performed at major festivals, including Just for Laughs and Latitude, while also directing acclaimed short films and creating comedy for the BBC. With sharp writing, fearless storytelling, and a stage presence full of energy and mischief, she brings the kind of comedy that feels both wildly personal and brilliantly cinematic. It's comedian Kate Hammer. So, growing up back in Canada, I guess, how was comedy an influence on you back then?
Yeah, I mean, it was the way we survived, I think. I grew up with three older brothers on a goat farm in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was cows, and then we moved to goats, which were not money makers. So you had to have a good sense of humor with so many people, not a ton of money, and you know, I couldn't go see a friend at the end of the day. I was always so jealous in high school. One of my friends were just like, "Oh, I'll just walk to your house and we'll hang out tonight." And I was like, "And then will you guys like call me, or how are we going to hang out as well?" Yeah. So yeah, comedy was always a big thing, just like in terms of, it was also a natural thing. So I was very lucky in that I always thought that every family was like this. Every family was trying to make each other laugh all the time and cracking jokes. Yeah. I was obsessed with things like Just for Laughs, because that was on, they would put that on the TV. So people like, you know, Danny Boy was massive to us. We were just like loved. Everyone could agree on loving him, and all these other comedians. Jeremy Hotz was another one we all loved. He was a Canadian comedian, and shows like the Red Green Show, which is this like very odd one man written. It filmed in front of a live studio audience, but with like black and white sketch intervals, like non-speaking black and white, very the Three Stooges sketch cutaways. Yeah. And then it would just come back to this man being like, "I tried to fix my lawnmower with duct tape," and everyone was like, "Yeah." It says a nuts show, and we went to the live recording, and my mom made us all duct tape fashion items to wear to it. So it's like, you know, I think what I love about comedy when you're a kid is that you're not questioning anything, which is the same reason like that Mr. Blobby exists is insane. It's been such a joy to find out about Mr. Blobby. And people asked me, because I did Stuart Law's show, saying never as Michael Caine for 1 hour, and Mr. Blobby appeared. People were like, "Oh, do you know who that is?" And I was like, "Yes, obviously." I've been here 5.5 years, but also I knew Mr. Blobby before because he's just a part of media. Yeah. And I was watching so much UK media before I came over here for years. Not on purpose. That's the stuff I liked. And it was like, you will stumble across people referencing Mr. Blobby or being on like certain quiz shows. And you're like, this was a kid's figure? So it's like one of those things. Yeah. Just like as a kid, comedy was all around me, but all just like also very, in funny ways around. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you're aware of who Mr. Blobby was, because I was at that show, and considering how you were interacting with one another, it was very good that you at least had a passing relationship already.
Yes, incredible. So I made so many people jealous. They're like, "You don't deserve this."
So you mentioned Stuart Law's work there, and of course, when I saw you, I guess for the first time live, it was at the Fringe of last year, in his Murder Mystery with Puffins.
Yes.
And then, of course, I enjoyed that so much, your turn there, that I decided to stick around and see the work in progress that you were doing of your upcoming show, which we'll come to. So we'll get back to your journey through comedy, but what about that collaboration with Stuart Laws or with other people? How big is collaboration a thing for you in comedy?
Oh, massive. And I think this is why I'm not a person who does 2-camera videos on TikTok and Instagram, because I feel no desire to speak to myself or try to make myself laugh, you know? I mean, I like to make myself laugh, but not for a camera and then to film. Like, there's nothing there to me. It's just, you know, you to a camera. If there's a friend in the room, then I'll do it because I'm trying to make my friend laugh. So everything in comedy to me is about that relationship of not only comedian audience, but comedian other potential comedian, like just trying to play with someone, playing the game of, can we, you know, make each other laugh? And I think I've become a little better about it with other comedians, especially because I've learned that not everyone wants to play, or not everyone knows that I'm playing, and they might think that I'm just being myself as I say some crazy things, usually in an altered voice. So for me, it's like, I'm clearly doing a character bit. And people just look at me. It was recently in some comedy club basement. I said something and everyone kind of like looked oddly, and I was like, oh, I'm being a guy who's never had sex. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, that's why this question is actually funny. So yeah, collaboration to me is it's the root of comedy. It's the root of everything, all art and artistic expression. You're not doing it in a tunnel. You're not doing it never having read something or taken anything in. So everything is inherently a collaboration, and it's going to be better. Trust that it'll always be better when you've collaborated. So working with Stuart was amazing on Stuck, because he had such a great script to begin with, but then was also, open to, oh, what about this? Or there's room for a connection here or a callback here. And having someone trust you and be open to ideas, but also really know his vision, which I also was really grateful for. So if you'd be like, what about this? And you'd be like, no. And you're like, okay, great. Now I know, like, you know, what the lines are. And then, so yeah, working on my show has been really, really fun. It's been busy for me in every other aspect of life. So we've not gotten a meeting in for a little bit. So he's started sending me just text notes being like, do this now. I'll be like, excellent, thank you. But yeah, it's to me, I've like worked with some people in the past on shows just for like, you know, notes or thoughts on a single show, not directing a show. And I felt I'm someone who really thrives on people. Like, I need compliments, but I also want people to be like, this can be better, and push me to make it better, because I'm so busy, I run out of time. So I can tend to, you know, I can find myself settling for like, well, that joke's good enough. That punchline's good enough. And you're like, yes, but is it the best that it could be?
Yeah.
And when you're so busy, and because comedy doesn't necessarily have like a deadline all the time, it can be really tricky to prioritize. Well, I'll write 10 versions of that joke and find out what is the best one. So it's nice to have a director who, you know, will be like, okay, this is good, but this can be better. And you're like, yes, I know that too. I just needed someone else to say that to me and force me to, you know, take another look at it. Because in the past, other people would watch my show and be like, that's great. And I'd be like, yeah, but like, you know, I just feel like it's not good enough. And they're like, no, it's perfect. And I'm like, no, it's not. But I don't want, you know, you're not being nice to me when I hear that. I just go, no, now I don't trust you. But yeah, I mean, I don't think, has any comedian ever said that collaboration isn't important to them? I would be so keen to meet that person. But yeah, I just love working with people. Yeah. And I think coming from an improv and sketch and theater background as well is where that partially comes from, because I am just, I didn't start in stand up. So I find it a really unnatural creative space to go, I will just write alone. I'll be in my room and I will come up with comedy. And I'm like, me, just around a friend or two is when I'm like, okay, now my brain is in that space to go, to come up with ideas. So yeah, I need to, sometimes I'll just ask a friend to come over and be like, I'm going to try and make you laugh for a bit and then we'll write that down because I can't do this alone.
Well, let's talk about that start then, your road in. Like you say, you did start out in comedy. So what was the original ambition?
Ooh, original ambition is a good question because I'm not sure if I exactly had an outright one. I always, since I was a kid, I wanted to be a performer. Like, so badly and so openly. But I think because growing up on a goat farm, there's not a lot of options. Even if there was opportunities, it's not like I knew like we didn't have the time or I couldn't make it. I remember there being one, like there was, I grew up close to Stratford, Ontario. And so there's the Stratford Festival Theatre, which is a world-renowned Shakespearean festival theatre. Sister cities of Stratford upon Avon. And they had, they're doing Oliver and they needed kids who could dance and sing. And I saw there was an open call, but it was on the same day as the Apple Butter and Cheese Festival, which is a very homely festival nearby my house. And so I knew, I was like, oh, I can't go because, we're busy and that's so gutting to me. And then later on, my parents were like, oh, why didn't you say something? And I was then gutted forever. I was like, I had the chance. I could have been on the stage, but I had been so trained to know that like, oh, the answer is probably going to be no, because we're doing other things and this is not a priority. And we need to go to the Apple Butter and Cheese Festival to sell cheese because my dad at the time was a cheesemaker, working for his own goat dairy cooperative. And not a lot of people want to goat cheese, so that was a hard time. I knew that since a kid, but I think it's one of those things that becomes quite embarrassing to say. Like you don't want to be in high school going, I'd want to be a performer, and then you just have all these people go like, well, you're not good enough, because it's such a subjective art. And I remember a few years ago, Nish Kumar, I think it was on a podcast or something, talking about how comedy is one of the few things where you can claim that somebody's not done it if they don't enjoy it. Like you can't build a wall and someone go, you didn't build a wall. You're not a builder because you didn't build. And it's like, yeah, the wall's clearly there. It might not be a good wall, but I still built it. But comedy is one of the few things where you can go, that's not funny. You're not funny. And you're like, well, it's funny to me. Yeah. So it is funny. It's funny, So anyway, I've always kind of thought of that and loved that in terms of, But, so it was an embarrassing thing. I just kind of, because you're good at performing and being outgoing, it tends to be the thing where my parents always said, oh, you'd be good at sales. You should be a salesman or go in PR, like your cousin Tanya. Tanya's having so much fun in PR for Molson Brewery. And it just killed me. It killed me because it felt like all my parents don't believe in me. So no one ever said like, you can't do this or dissuaded me. But it was that passive kind of like, oh, come on, we just get a job. We get a good job and you would be good at sales. I'm sure I would be good at sales. I'd hate it.
Yeah.
I'd hate it. Sure, I would be good at PR, but I'd always, yearn for something else. So I didn't really see the point in like going to school for something I didn't really want. Also because it was also like, well, but I also get good grades. I could be, not to be an asshole, I could be an engineer if I wanted to. So it's kind of like, I was stuck after high school and being like, I've done so many things. I've gotten high grades, but I don't know what I want to kind of focus on because I think there was that push and pull of, well, I should just be like a doctor or something. But I know deep down I don't want to, but I don't know how to like admit that to myself now. And I even had a friend tell me like, you should be an actor. You're great. But it was like only one friend. And I still have such a high need for validation from people around me that it was just like, that wasn't enough. I also didn't see the point of going to school for acting, because I was like, why would I spend 4 years doing an acting degree just to be able to act? If I can act already, it was one of those things of like, I don't need a degree. Come on. This is such a waste of money and time. And obviously like acting and drama schools to me are such hilarious, insane things. I helped a friend do an audition for drama school during COVID, so he had to film everything.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, the things that Rada was asking for me to film for my friend, being like, all right, so you're going to be a horse for 5 minutes and let me just follow you with this camera. And oh my gosh, I think I get it, but this is brutal. Insanity, insane things they're doing at RADA. And I'm not sure it makes people better all the time, you know? It's like clown school. You're like, some people are getting stronger and better, but you're also breaking some people and probably putting them into their heads way too much. So anyway, so stand-up was like not the necessary goal. I just was always a funny person. I wanted to make people laugh, but I thought I would do that during like, performing or in general in theater, because theater was the most accessible thing to me when I eventually moved to Montreal to do a creative writing degree. And I think that was, my middle ground of saying, well, I'm not going to do a useless degree I don't want to do, but this is like at least giving me the basis of doing creative writing so I could write screenplays and, nonfiction and stories. So I did that. And I never technically graduated because the school really pissed me off. And I had to speak to a counselor or I want to say project manager, but for this specific degree, this degree manager. And at first she refused to meet with me, which I thought was really weird. She's like, I don't want to talk with you. Like straight up. And I was like, this feels illegal. I'm paying. Finally, I managed to get a hold of her, and I was like, I'm out of credits in the creative writing degree, but because I'm a mature student, you're now telling me I need an extra 10 credits or 10 classes to graduate, which just feels like a school saying, we just want you to give us another £10,000. And she was like, yeah, why don't you take some nutrition degrees or some nutrition classes? And I was like, I'm an anemic, gluten intolerant fucking farmer who grows up knowing way too much about cheese. I know nutrition, and I'm sure I would learn more in a nutrition class, but I was like, I'm not about to pay you this money. And also to finish a creative writing degree, it's like no one's not going to hire me because I haven't finished my degree. Yeah. So she really pissed me off. So I quit and got a full-time job as a writer for this app. But it was around that time when I was in Montreal that I started stand up. Mm-hmm. And so I was, had moved there to do a creative writing degree. I'd finally done improv classes that I'd been wanting to do for years. But in Toronto, I was working as a tour guide. So like international tour guide. So I would suddenly be away for 2 weeks in Morocco, quite last minute. Like it would just, it was a small company. So they go, actually, Kate, we need you to do this trip. So I could never sign up for a class because I was like, well, I never know when I'm going to be in the city and miss half the classes. And if I do improv, I want to do it right. Yeah. So finally able to do improv. And I think that's when I opened up the world. And I loved stand-up for so long. It was a friend who then was like, oh, I can help you get your first gig. Great. And it went really well, which freaked me out because I was like, every comedian talks about their first gig, how they start out terrible and they were awful. And then you grit through and you get better. So it went really well. And I got offered another gig immediately. And I was like, oh no, I'm doing it wrong. I started off too high, which meant I need to crash back down. But then you learn slowly over time that comedy is like the least linear thing in the world, even less linear than grief, I would say. You're like, no matter how good you get and how good, a comedian you look up to, just the wrong audience. And you're like, well, they can still die on stage. That can still happen. So yeah, started comedy there, and I mean, got hooked in the way that I loved making an experience with that audience for one night only.
Yeah.
And I loved, seeing the range of comedians and how we all, you make a show together with a more deadpan comedian and, this or that. You try things out, the experimentation, you see what works. I loved that kind of contract of you're sitting there, I have a mic, but we're, I'm still in your palm because I have to make you laugh. But I have to have the confidence. I can't show how desperate I am to make you laugh. So there needs to be this bit of, it's just such a tricky balance. I think it's the toughest art form in the world. And I think even if you add like musical comedy, that's easier. Because people at the end of the day will go, wow, oh my God, there's a guitar. They know how to play music. There's another skill there.
Yeah.
But when you're just talking to the audience going, I'm here to storytell, but like, if you're not laughing every minute, I have failed. But I can't, how do you get people to walk away feeling like that was the best show they've seen, or they're like, they were so happy to spend however much money they spent on seeing you.
Yeah.
And I think when I was in Montreal, I also it was before, but I rewatched it again and again in Montreal. It was Simon Amstell's Do Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. I haven't watched it in a while. I should probably put it back on because to me, that was like a perfect hour, not even a perfect comedy hour, a perfect hour of time because it was so funny.
Mm-hmm.
It made me laugh, but I also felt like I genuinely had a philosophical awakening. And it was storytelling and comedy, and genuinely you walked away from that hour feeling like a different person. And I thought like, oh my gosh, if this is what UK comedy is doing, because in North America, it was just about like, we'll make some jokes and then I'll end with a little joke. And then that's it. It was just, and that's great. That's what some people want. And that is totally fine. But for me, if it can work on multiple levels and do multiple things, like, of course, like comedy is coming from an honest place. At least for me, I had a conversation the other day where people were talking about making up stuff for comedy. And I was like, I don't do that. And they're like, what? I was like, I don't really see the point in like making up a completely untrue event. I'll spitball, like but it has to be based in reality. It has to be based in truth for me to kind of, then I can build and like change, modify things about it. But I think the audience can tell. For me, like I say, for other people, they can make it work. But I think they can tell, for me, something feels like not quite right. And they don't know why. It's like when you hear a comedian repeat an off the cuff, quote unquote, remark, but that comedian does that every time, but they try and play it off.
Yeah.
And then you can see it stops working. And I think, the audience can tell like something isn't quite right here, but we don't know why. Because you're like, it is funny. And why aren't you laughing? And they're like, we don't know. It's funny. It's like, it's almost funny. You can just see that. So for me, I have to base everything in some sort of reality. But so yeah, that's how I think that's what I was inspired by, especially was comedians like Simon Amstell, and then opened the door to every other UK comedian. And I think it was probably because I was an au pair in France after high school when I was making my decision of what to do with my life.
Uh-huh.
So then, and I didn't have a lot to do with my time because everyone else was on vacation, and I didn't. I only met one friend, and so YouTube was like, hey, you're over in Europe now. Want to watch a lot of European comedy? And I was like, yes. And that's when I just was like, wow, this is amazing. But yeah, so yeah, I started in Montreal, but for me, it was quite a passive thing to do because I was paying for, goat farming doesn't make much money. I had to pay for everything myself. University costs a heck ton in Quebec because I was going out of province. So I could not justify asking off a Friday night from making probably $300 in tips in order to do 5 minutes of comedy.
Yeah.
Like I could, in what world, being like, I need to pay rent and food and pay for my tuition and pay for my debt, because I did have to take out a loan from Ontario to make ends meet. In what world can I justify 5 minutes of time? But of course, you have to do 1,000,005 minutes in order to get better. So it was just an impossible thing for me, where I started, but I didn't feel really a part of the community because I only did shows when I was asked to. I never asked to do a show. And then I only did shows when I could. So like on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. So it was at very odd, off-kilter, open comedy nights. And it was maybe once every 2 months, like just when it worked out for me. So I didn't get necessarily better, because for the first couple ones, I did a completely new 5 minutes every time. I didn't know how to build 5 minutes, right? I was like, I'll talk about this and this and this, and this is what makes my friends laugh. So perfect. Very experimenting. But then I started kind of repeating. No, it was a thing for me where it was like, I've done 6 shows and I've never repeated a single joke. And you're like, yeah, you're also not getting better. You're also, all of these are equally chaotic and good, slightly good, but like not great. So that's when it took me like probably a year and a half, but again, that only being 6 shows to go, I probably should, like, if I want to take this seriously, I need to repeat stuff and work on stuff. And not just be like, I'm a savant who can do a new 5 every time. No, you can't. You're not. So it was when I was like, actually, you know what? I want to be a comedian. I want to be a great comedian. I'm going to start focusing on comedy. Was in February 2020, and my grandma died, and then COVID happened. Coincidence? I don't know. She started it, and so it was kind of this weird stop-start thing,
right?
Where just when I was like, I'm reaching out, I'm going to book myself shows, and I'm going to take comedy seriously, the world shut down. And then I was like, well, luckily I'm also a writer. So that's when I was like, started looking into coming over to the UK, because I was like, I've spent years obsessed with watching everything UK comedy. I need to get over there. And also, I want to focus on TV writing, since this COVID thing, it seems like it'll shift the world for a little bit. And that's kind of also the culmination of all of my skills is, storytelling and the creative writing degree and the creative writing experience and comedy. So I was like, that's my dream job, would be in a comedy television room, pitching jokes, making people laugh, but making people laugh in the room, testing that joke 1,000,000 times, and then making people laugh on screen as well.
Yeah.
So then, when I came over here again, it was super COVID-y, so we couldn't do anything. And only after like a year and a half did I finally get to go back on the stage and kind of, my first show back was an improvised stand-up. Like legitimately, people pulled things out of a hat and you stepped forward to do a bit of stand-up that you kind of made up on the spot.
Right.
Which was a fucking great way for me to come back, because I was like, I do improv, I do stand-up. Yeah, let's set the fucking target as high as possible for the first time back. And I had a blast. And I think it was so the right thing, because I didn't overthink it. I didn't overthink doing it. I was just like, well, let me come up with as many possibilities of what could come out of that hat as possible.
Yeah.
Just thoughts. And I'll try and think of some thoughts, and maybe there's a punchline. But also trusting yourself to improvise on stage, which I think is still where I sit best on stage now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, one of those things that comedians going into doing comedy, they kind of don't really know anything. There's no like training pack that you can get to help you understand what it means to do comedy for real. So did you go in with expectations? Did you encounter things that really surprised you about what it meant to actually be doing comedy for yourself?
Yeah, there's no roadmap, And I was so jealous to come here and start doing comedy. And then find out people, especially in Glasgow, there's a wonderful comedian named Viv G. She started out as a poet, and then she's in comedy, and she teaches. And so almost every single one of the comedy people coming out of Scotland, or at least Glasgow, from like, a few years ago to now, will have started with a Viv G course. And I'm like, oh, I would have loved doing something like that. just like a little, something to go, here's how to make your first 5 minutes. And felt so passionate about that like, not that I'm qualified or was qualified at the time to run this, but in Montreal, after, a little bit longer doing some gigs, I co-ran like a stand-up workshop because I was like, it took me so long to figure out what the scene was, who to contact for your first 5 minutes, how to write 5 minutes, that like after a couple of years ago, especially other women and, marginalized everything should have a stepping stone to know where to go, because who has the confidence to figure it out and not question themselves is straight men. And that's why the Montreal scene was like, oh my gosh, some of the worst things I've ever heard said in like life said on a comedy stage in Montreal. You would just walk into a gig and I was like, oh my God, that's like fully a hate crime that you've just said that. And then you just have to go on and do your comedy after them.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. So I was like trying to be like, how do we get more, other people on stage and talking about their personal experiences and open up the comedy scene? I think now Montreal scene is fantastic. And very wide ranging, but that wasn't your question. So yeah, I was very jealous of people being able to take a course and having that bit of roadmap, or I think it's becoming more common to kind of reach out to people and ask for kind of an informal mentorship with bigger comedians or something. And I think there's, especially in the Scottish scene, there's a really great community about it. So that's been really great. But I think I had no idea what to expect. And I think being in Montreal, which was home for Just for Laughs, was crazy because you go, oh, so when do I get my gala? There's you don't understand how long it takes or how good you have to be or how to get good, I guess, especially when you're kind of stuck doing only a couple of gigs and the same gigs to other comedians. You're like, is this the best pressure cooker to make us the best possible audience? And, Stuart Laws will say because he's been performing a ton in the US now, that North American audiences are just so much more ready to laugh than UK audiences. And I have to agree. It's not like I perform a ton when I go back to Canada because I'm only there for short bursts and trying to see friends. But there's been lots of times where I see, like, I think the scene is great there, but I will still go back and see them perform. And I go, God, you could not handle Red Raw at the stand. You could not handle, like, you would be killed. They would kill you for deigning to do that and be like, that's enough. Because I think there's quite a lackadaisical people go, here's a funny idea. And the audience is like, yeah, we're here, especially in Glasgow. The audience is like, we're funnier than you. And you're like, yeah. I got to be like 10 steps ahead of you in order to get, to make you laugh, because they're so quick and they won't be afraid to shout it out if they think what they have is funnier than you. And then sometimes it is. And you're like, shit. All right, I got to go back to the drawing board on that one.
It's an interesting part of the UK psyche.
Yeah.
Because you're like miserable all the time, it's mitigated with humor.
Yes.
And then there's the thing that I've talked about previously about generally speaking, and it's not everywhere, but generally speaking in the US, the audience will assume that you're funny. You're here, you're being paid to do the job, arguably. So they assume you're funny and you just have to come out and fulfill that expectation. Whereas in the UK, they assume you're going to be rubbish and you have to prove that you're not.
Yes. I think it's also, everyone's so the more self-deprecating, but I think Canada kind of bridges that. I would say, like, from the UK to the US, like, Canada's kind of the middle. But still, like, I wouldn't say that, yes, me and my brothers tried to make each other laugh all the time. But, even my extended family, it's not like we're all, there was no banter. Which is why I think I felt like so crazy as a child, because I was like, I want to, I'm this high energy, natural high energy person, and trying to just like, go after playing and making people laugh all the time. And then your aunt is there being like, are you happy? And I was like, that was a crazy thing to say to me right now. But she, in terms of like, that's not crazy, but like, I have one aunt that I only see like every couple of years. She tries to like cram 3 years of being in touch into one moment, which just, leads her to very like intensely being like, you're happy, right? And you're like, sure, if that's what's going to make you all right with this conversation. And not see, she wouldn't see any humor in that whatsoever. You're just like, oh gosh, this is a crazy thing. So yeah, I don't know if I had any like even thoughts about how to get where I wanted to go, or even kind of, again, I think I was still in that stage of going, well, I'm doing stand up, but I don't know if I want to admit to wanting to be a stand up, because that's scary. And people can say that you're not funny, and people can say that you're not good enough, and you might not be, and maybe you never make it. And how embarrassing is that? So it was always like this thing that I think, my heart was going for, but my head wouldn't let me chase after. And it was really only moving here to the UK, bankrupting myself on 3 different visas, and being like, oh, okay, so I'll just be broke and have no money. And kind of reaching that bottom and going, well, I guess like I'm doing it. Like if I don't believe in myself, then what am I doing? So if I may as well fully commit to, trying to be as funny as I can and trying to make this work, because in the UK it can happen. Thinking that was the other thing in Canada, the amount of full-time stand-ups, here I always ask people, and I think I've asked you this before, I'm like, who's your favorite Canadian comedian who lives in Canada right now? And people can't say, they go, Jim Carrey. Okay, yeah, no, he lives in the U.S. Mike Myers, Catherine Ryan, Mae Martin. Is like, these are all people who left Canada to become famous.
Yeah, I was going to say they're all here, aren't they?
Yes.
All the best Canadian comedians are here.
Yes, Tom Stade. There's
Tony Law.
Yes,
Michelle Shaughnessy.
You don't know people who stay in Canada because it's not a thing, and they can't make money off of it.
I know one.
Who?
Mark Forward.
Oh, yes.
His special just came out on YouTube today. It was the funniest show I saw in 2025. The whole year. It was so funny. Everyone has to go and watch Safari Time right now. So
okay,
turn this
perfect.
off. Come back to it in an hour.
But that's the thing, is like, funny people exist there, but there's levels to it, because celebrity culture doesn't exist really in Canada like it does here.
Yeah.
We don't have Love Island. It wouldn't work. What you get away with saying on panel shows here, I mean, we don't even have panel shows in Canada. It's like, so there's no path where here you go, oh, great, you do live, then maybe you do, live at the Apollo, and then you get on the panel shows and you do QI and you do this, and never mind the buzz costumes. And then that's your world, and you can make money, and then you tour, and you can, oh my gosh, you can make a career, and it's just a part of everyday life. But in Canada, it was very much like, God, I don't know what you do. You do a bit of stand-up, and then you try and get like a TV show like Rick Mercer, but he was more of a political journalist than he was comedian. But he was this personality. Or George Stroumboulopoulos, again, not a comedian, just a host, but kind of, maybe made 2 jokes. So people were like, he's funny. You're like, I'm not sure. So it was really hard to see like where you could go, where you could make money, how you could survive.
Yeah.
Plus Canada's so massive with big cities so far in between that you're just like, it's driving 8 hours from Montreal to Toronto. You could only gig in like maybe Kingston and Ottawa along the way. So 4 stops in 8 hours, but 8 hours is Glasgow to London, and you could stop probably 1,000 times and do a gig and make money along the way. So yeah, it's just about like it not being possible there as well. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier on about when you were like being a character or basing things in truth. So how much of you on stage is the truth, and how much is it you, and how much is it a character of you, a version of you?
Yeah. I mean, I think unfortunately it's quite 100% me in some instances.
Why is that unfortunate?
Because sometimes, honestly, sometimes people are just like, oh, that's like, too much. Being so naturally high energy, you're afraid of people being, saying you're too much, but you're also afraid of people saying you're not enough. And it's that weird dichotomy of like, how can I feel like I am overwhelming and yet not delivering enough? With the constant struggle internalized. But as recently, I was having a conversation with a couple of people, and we were talking about TV shows, and then we started talking about another comedian, And we're like, oh, she's amazing. And I was like, yes, she is. I love her. I love her stuff. She's so funny. Great. And then we keep chatting about her. And I was like, looking at my watch, like, okay, guys, we were supposed to meet for an hour and talk about our own ideas. That's not happened so far. It's almost been an hour. And now we're just like shooting smoke up this person's ass who isn't here. And I don't, after a couple minutes, my brain, I'm so tired. And when I get tired, I'm just like, let's get to the point. And so it became just so frustrated being like, what is happening? What is happening here? And then they keep talking. They're like, yes, oh my gosh, did you see her in this, one film? She was so good. She did nothing, but just like her stillness, he was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And just, I feel like people want to go too big and they want to be too much. And it's just like, why don't you just try doing less? And like, I know it was not about me, but there's always that thing when you're just like, I'm not trying to be big. Like, this is just me. Like, the amount of times I come off stage and people are like, oh my gosh, or I say, oh my gosh, I felt so low energy. Like, I was just really off tonight. And people are like, that's you, low energy, but to me it is. If I'm not trying to run around stage. That's not a thought in my head to do. That's just like, again, I'm trying to make this audience, I'm trying to connect with this audience and make something only that this will exist on this hour for this audience on this night, which is especially why I love hosting, because you're just like, oh, now I can make callbacks that will only be funny to us together. And we're having an experience together with comedy that cannot be repeated anywhere else and isn't this fun and special. So yeah, I think that's why I say unfortunately, is because being big energy is not everyone's style in terms of wanting to watch that. And I think they should die, but that's okay. They can say that. But so yeah, I obviously can heighten, like I love adding like voices or stepping into different, spaces when you're regaling a story, or again, just making clear to people like, I'm doing a little bit now. And they're like, oh yeah, great. This is something different. But that's also just like who I am to my friends and who I am to myself. I talk to myself all the time. And you're just like it's one of those, again, like, this is why I go, sometimes to other comedians, I have to go, I'm being someone else right now, because they don't get it. But like to your close friends who know you, you're just like constantly being like just a gremlin. And they're like, oh, this is a new guy. And you're like, yeah, let's find out who this guy is. Yeah. So I think, just constantly it is, I would say, again, everything has to be based in truth. And it is unfortunately me.
Well, what about your entertainment? Comedy is an entertainment for you. Do you watch comedy now with the same zeal, or are you like analytical? Are you thinking you're with the director's hat on?
Oh, I'm terrible. And not necessarily watching comedy, because I think this is when like your comedians really come into play, where you go, I'll laugh if I'm surprised. It's hard to surprise me now, because it's like, I'm not just coming from a stand-up, but again, like improv and sketch and writing. And like, my brain is so trained to be like, and this is where you would go from here. So, and I'm people always just say to me like, oh, you're a fast laugher. Like, I know where the joke is going. So I'll start laughing because I go, oh, this is going to be funny. And then they say the punchline and you're like, you're not laughing anymore, because you're like, yes, that was what I thought. And then you said it, and perfect. What a perfect, nice little joke there. So it puts you out of sync sometimes, where you're like, then you're just sitting and you're listening to everyone else laugh, going, I laughed before, but I do still find it funny, please. And you're just like, what an odd, you're just like it's like that thing where you want, humans want to go to concerts and live shows because we love like being on the same brain wavelength as everyone else. And I'm just like shooting off at the wrong times. But not to say that I'm a genius and know every joke. I absolutely don't. So this is why I love when you find a comedian where you're like, whoa, what the heck? This is like, I couldn't think about what you're going to do next. And I love that. And I'm a huge laugher. Like I'd like to think I'm an easy laugher, but I am absolutely not, because I did a clown course last year because of course I did. And it was so crazy, like going to a basement and learning clown and being like, oh my gosh, these are some of the most annoying people in this class. And I'm one of them. I'm here as well. Which means I must be like them. And then, they called me the non-laugher of the class because I would sit there and, like you said, like not on purpose, but you're just analyzing of going, yeah, great. Oh, you found something there. And here's what I would do with this. If I would take this and I would write this, like, here's the game and here's what I would heighten, or you could do this, or yeah. You're just constantly going, I'm watching and I'm going, yes. But there was one person who made me laugh, like scream laughing, and no one else really found funny. And so this is the thing too, where you're like, I've seen, and this is what I had to explain to them because they were like, God, you're such a hard person. I don't like looking at you because you're not laughing. And I was like, I used to be, people would say you're such a great audience member because usually I'm there like smiling, being very like, yay, you've got this to whatever I'm watching. But I guess I just had no energy in this class. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be this like Debbie Downer person, but I spend my whole life in comedy clubs or thinking about comedy or thinking about story. Because at the time I worked for continuing drama with BBC Studios. I was like, I am always on, so I can't, turn that off. But this one person who did make me laugh, because it came from this, like, she was studying to be a doctor. And she was just doing this class on the side. So it was just a genuine place of her, like, going, I don't know. And not coming on with any ideas. Like, even everyone else is coming on. You're told not to, but I was like, you planned this. So I think I resent that too. And I'm like, no, you're coming on with something. And I don't like that. You should muck about and fail. We're here to fail. And she came on with such genuine energy. And it would just, we were told to just, try anything, right? And then if you flop, great. And she would just freak out and scream into a wall. And I was like, yes, like this. I'm watching a genuine person just experiment and just yell into a wall and then go, ah! And you're like, yeah. You're like, I'm clapping. I'm laughing my ass off. No one else likes it. So you're like, I don't know if we as comedians kind of ruin our experience by being around it and just like overthinking it all the time.
Yeah.
Because also sometimes when somebody says a funny joke as well, you go, instead of laughing, you go, fuck, that was good. And now you're mad. Why didn't I fucking think of that? I have a similar bit, but it's not as good. So now I got to drop that bit. If I just made it better sooner, there's so many thoughts, I think, because it is, again, like, with improv, you're stepping onto a stage, having each other's back, because if one person fails, you all fail. So, but in stand-up, there is an element of like, we're here to compete. And you're constantly comparing yourself against other people with it, which is the most unhealthy for your mental health thing to do in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird one.
But on the subject of competition there, let's talk about your festival experience and your upcoming show, because obviously thousands of shows competing for an audience's attention.
Yes.
But also the other side of competition, that like awards, for example. So you've had award nominations for work in theatre and film, television. Just recently you got nominated for the Billy Connolly Spirit of Glasgow. Congratulations on that.
Yes, I lost yesterday. No!
Multiple Funny Women nominations. look, let's
yes.
They're throwing nominations at you left, right and centre. It's not like you're not getting people's attention. But, how do you feel about the competition element, the idea of these accolades, and of course what that means to you at Fringe?
Oh my gosh. Do you know what? Thank you so much for saying that, because it's such a funny, you're reminded of how to have a different perspective on things. And you're being like, my gosh, you have so many nominations. And I really go through life going, I haven't won a damn thing. Why am I not good enough for these people? So he'll always look at the downside. And they won't let me win because they're absolute cowards. They're afraid. I can always pull it back where you're like, oh, they just needed someone from the UK to win. They really did.
No, it's just you're too good. They don't want to skew the figures. That's all it is.
Yeah, they know Kate can handle losing and she'll still be good. I can't.
They can't turn around every year from now on saying, but is it as good as Kate Hammer?
Oh God. I think comedy competitions go against everything comedy should be and make comedy actively worse and develop competitive mindset, because I think stand-up comedy could be more community driven. And I think people are really jealous when I tell them about the comedy community in Scotland and how supportive we are of each other, and how like and like genuinely some comedians here who I wouldn't be where I am without like their recommendations and their help. Like Roscoe McClellan is not only one of the funniest people I think in the world, but like genuinely posted and recommended me so that I got known and I got gigs. And he is one of those people who's like not only going, I'm a nice person in person, but also like actively behind the scenes fueling this community. So I think like competitions, whenever I watch a competition, I go, God, what a great lineup. What a range of comedy.
Yeah.
And how hard is that? Like it's apples and oranges. We want a fruit bowl. And so I think what's really difficult is competitions kind of drive this idea of like, what will win? What's the criteria? And I think something like that doesn't pertain to the Billy Connolly, because that's just like a really joyous, it was so amazing to be shortlisted with like such massive names that you're like, wow, I look up to these people. And that's more about just everything of like, I think the criteria is being, funny and bold and gallus and this and that. And so you're just like, it was a great thing. But like when you're an actual performance comedy competition, I don't do well. I hate 5 minutes. I think I need to spend so much time at the top of a set telling people why I have this accent. And no, I'm not American. So, like addressing that. And people are like, you don't need to do Canadian jokes. And it's like, I'm not even going to do a Canadian joke. I just need people come in with, and as soon as I start speaking, they have ideas, even if it's in the back of their head, that I need to kind of take and go, oh, look at this idea and look at this idea.
Yeah.
And I'm, I either use it or go, I'm not going to be that. And also train them to be like, and I'm going to be a bit weird, a little bit silly, and get people on board with what I'm going to be like. So I've always found like 10 minutes was such a nice, like sitting place of going, I can kind of come in with some easier jokes and joke about, when I had my mullet, especially like my appearance and this and that. And then we can start getting into the weird stuff. And then by the time I get to goat fisting, people are like, all right, we're on board. The other night I tried to open with that crazy idea, crazy of me to do. And I think I was kind of in a mood because I stepped on stage and right away, you have that feeling where it was in a cool basement, everyone has their coats on and they just kind of looked at you and I was like, they're not with me. I'm going to have to work to win them over. And I really resented that. Because sometimes you're like, I don't want to have to dress that like, yes, I'm a woman being your headliner in comedy. And I know that's unusual for you. And, and here's my accent and here's everything and here's my vibe. And instead I was just like, you know what? Goat fisting. I put my hand in a goat and I liked it. And, and it was so, the audience is like, what the hell? And you're like, I know. I fucked it over on purpose. Just sometimes you just have evil in your heart where you go, I want to make this bad. I want to punish you guys for not like opening your hearts as soon as I walked in the door. I started doing the goat fisting and then I stopped it halfway through because I was like, Kate, what are you doing right now? You can't be mad at these people you don't know. And I started doing something else and I came back to it later. So it was all fine. But I just think that like, again, it's a solitary action for the most part of doing stand-up. And we constantly compare ourselves to others, like on a lineup. Oh, were they funnier than I was? And it's like, God, there's so many variables on each night to know how funny someone is or what the audience is primed for. What mood they're in, how many drinks they've had. If you were later in the show, would it have gone differently? There's just endless kind of things. So it's really not helpful to kind of do that comparison. It's helpful to be like, oh, I want to be as best as I can be.
Yeah.
So I just think I don't have an alternative because I also know that like, especially for my visa, being nominated for competitions was very helpful and was part of the reason why I got the visa to stay. But like, how do you showcase the up and coming next, new people in comedy while also not pitting them against one another? Or again, just like, if I see someone who's really deadpan and stays completely still on stage, but they kill it, so funny, that's amazing. How are you supposed to compare that to me when I'm like running about and doing the worm and, and that's because that's what's funny to me and to my audience. And I think a lot of, and maybe I just have jealousy because I was like, oh God, how good would it be for me to be able to just like be standing still on stage and just like have a slower pace. That is never who I'm going to be. And I think if I tried to do that, the audience would go, we know, like, again, it's that thing in the back of the head where you go, this isn't right. We know you're faking this. And I go, you're right. And I start running around again. But like, I think people go, oh, they're so effortlessly funny because they're like standing so still and slow pace. And it's just so funny. And you're like, no, it's not, it's like, that's just what that person does. And that's good. And this is, what this person does. And that's good. So again, I just think it's like brutal in terms of, making communities support each other in comedy, but it is technically good in order to do, I feel like some competitions now are like 2 minutes. It's crazy. It's getting crazy short. But again, it's a nice challenge to go, well, how can I present my best jokes in 2 minutes? But it then ultimately will favor one-liner comedians is my only criticism of like shorter times. You go, yeah, that person had a super high hit rate because it was laugh, laugh, laugh. That is that type of comedy, which again is an amazing type of comedy. I want to see that on a lineup. But I don't think it's just, I find it really difficult to be like, here is the funniest person of the night. Because then everyone else goes, oh shit, I wasn't good enough. And it's like, yes, you were. It was just, that's, the type of winner they're looking for. Basically, this is what I tell myself when I lose every single fucking time at a competition.
So there's been a couple of nods there to show content from you. So what is the Fringe show? What's the show all about? What can they expect?
Yeah, the show is mainly about me getting my global talent visa for comedy, which is why it's called Kate Hammer, government approved comedian. And it's trying to take you through the journey in a really fun way of here are the things I had to do and prove. It was such a crazy thing to go, you have to prove you're good enough to be in this country and write your own letters of recommendation and finding pieces of evidence to say I contribute to the comedy scene in the UK. Wild stuff. But around that is, a kind of introduction of me and my thoughts and my way of thinking, and my comedy. And I think that's the stuff that's constantly changing, is that material around, which is even, so I did Leicester and then I also did the GICF, the Glasgow Comedy Festival. And so it's kind of, again, I'm basically keep the structure, or I've been playing with the structure even, but I keep the kind of core idea of like, this is what it's like to go through a visa application. But it's more interesting and not boring, as that sounds. And then I wipe everything else out and then rebuild, like, what if it's this material? What if it's this material? So I hope to kind of then look back at everything I've tried out and go, well, what fits, like, fits all together that complements the theme and everything well. Because I'm someone who really, really loves callbacks. Sorry, that sounds like a comedian like talking about comedy for the first time. I'm actually I'm not like other comedians. I really like callbacks and I'm good at them too. I love when a show constantly, like Mary Elaine Robertson is so good at this, where you're watching all these bits and then it's brought back and brought back and brought back, and everything is being woven together, and you go, oh wow, like it's like a reward for paying attention, because everything that you think is just a one-off bit actually has a reason to be there. So that's like my ultimate goal as well. And I love being able to tie everything together in multitudes, which makes it very difficult to then pull that bit apart and do as a club set. But it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the material is a lot about growing up on a goat farm, watching, kids science shows, and then very little to do because I don't want to be one of those comedians who's like, oh my God, the cultural differences between Canada and the UK. Because I also think there aren't, as many as one would think. But kind of getting into the fact that I feel so at home here in the UK. And isn't that a crazy thing to be raised a Canadian, born and raised a Canadian, and made to fit in there, never feeling like I fit in with my family at home, and then here going, great, I finally feel like I can be myself. And so, and recognizing that I'm coming from a massively privileged place of immigration, even though it was so stressful and continues to be stressful, I still, with everything going on, massively privileged. And I think there's hope in that of being like, of calling myself an immigrant, where people, this is not is this what reform is fighting about? And you're like, who knows? But I'm one of them. I'm one of them now. So
what about when you're performing comedy? Is it still funny for you? Is it work? You're saying the same jokes day in, day out.
Yeah.
How do you keep it entertaining for yourself?
I think so. This is what Stuart and I have been working on, because for me, I need an element of not necessarily improvisation, but like there has to be room for me to build in something that, again, will only be in that show, something new and something fresh. And some comedians add in like one new joke per show to keep it like fresh for them. But for me, because I love hosting and doing crowd work, the audience interaction bit is built into the show. So immediately there's going to be a different interaction. And of course, a lot of times people, bring up the same answers or interact in similar ways. But being able to pull out different questions means that there's a different vibe that I can feed off into. And what's always nice is when you're doing a show and you kind of, this thing's clicking in the back of your head that goes, oh, I can take that and I can reference that again later on. Or when you're saying something, you're like, that relates to that. So you're building then new references and callbacks and jokes with that, with that audience. So that's how I keep every show fresh, is by making sure that every show there's built into the structure, talking to the audience, which means it'll be different every time. Yeah.
Here's a question. So talking about ways to amuse yourself, in my head, and you can confirm this, before you go on stage, do you sort of say quietly to yourself, hammer time?
No, I wish. Do you know, actually, a lot of what I say I'll try and say before a gig is like, as I go, just going to have fun.
There you go.
I'm just going to have fun. And I don't, say that before every gig, but there's such a nice reminder, especially if you're nervous, or if you're like not feeling great, instead of going, oh, how do I make them laugh? It's like, you're here to have fun.
Yeah.
You're here to, and then like, it's really hard to watch someone have fun and not also have fun.
Yeah.
But I think I don't say it's hammer time because, to me it is just a family name. Like it's genuinely, like it is my mother's maiden name. So I'm using my mom's side of the family, but, I have a Grandma Hammer still alive. I had Grandpa Hammer and my aunts and uncles Hammers. Like, to me, it's not ever been like a thing for me. But it should be. I absolutely delight in the pleasures that it brings to others. I think because like it's been announced that I'm having my Fringe, funded, and yes. I think Chorda was like, Kate nailed it. Welcome to Kate Hammer. And they're like, yeah, baby. It writes itself. I, for one, want more hammer puns, please. Thank you.
Well, do you think that you've learned a single lesson, perhaps, that kind of informs what you do going forward, or something you would tell your fledgling comic self? What's the one key takeaway that you've picked up so far?
think a lot of it is, just trusting yourself. Because I think sometimes you watch comedians who are not having a great set, but but like, it's not that, there's just something, the audience isn't, on their side, whatever. And their punchlines that should work aren't working. And you see the panic and you see them start to blame the audience or to say things like, okay, all right, you don't like that, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I've been so guilty of that as well. But when you're watching it and you go, oh, the audience were laughing or they were on your side, but you freaked out because it was different. And then you've made us feel bad because you go, oh, you didn't like that. And you go, oh, well, I did, but you didn't hear my laughter because of the room or or because I'm not laughing because I'm Kate Hammer. And, and then you panicked and then now you've made this worse and you're like, oh gosh, I've done that too. So there is that element, where, trusting yourself and trusting the audience is on your side, or knowing what to do when they're not, like, unless they're heckling you, they probably don't hate you. They just, are tired or don't know how to interact at a comedy show. So be more gracious. Don't tell the audience what they do and don't like. Trust that, like, they're on your side unless otherwise very clearly stated, I guess. I don't know if this would, what I would tell my fledgling self is to, like, stop needing such insane amounts of validation. But I don't think that will change needing that. So I don't know how to get rid of that. When you get off, like, a stage and then people go, that was amazing. And you go, okay, so that was okay. Like, it's like, So people say, oh, that was good. You go, oh, I really, fuck you. Fuck that. I fucked that up. It's like, I'm going to be hard on myself on even if I smash a gig, I go, okay, that was great, but I could have done this different, and I appreciate that about, myself. And when I see that in others, you're like, yeah, great. These are people, we are working to get better. Yeah. We are always striving for, like, a better show. But yeah, when does that become, like, detrimental anxiety to going, like, oh, that wasn't good. And it's like, can you just be a guy? It was great, actually. Can you just relax, please?
Yeah.
Because you see other people absolutely bombing it, and then they walk off stage and go, that was great. You go, God, to have that confidence happen.
You've really embraced the British sensibility.
Yeah.
Could have been worse, mustn't grumble. So how can listeners find out all about you and where they can come and see you performing?
Yes. You can find out about me at Kate the Hammer on all social media handles. My website is so out of date, but I think it's Kate. I think that's also Kate the Hammer. Mm-hmm. And I usually do okay about posting about shows and whatnot, but I will be at Monkey Barrel at the Fringe in the studio at 5 p.m. every single day. Doing Kate Hammer, government approved comedian, and every show will be different slightly. and working, I'm so happy to be working with Stuart Laws because I know the show will be as good as it can be. So I'm really excited about it.
So we get to my last question then, of course, is always the same. Kate, how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
See, that when you, like...
This is where everyone starts to answer like this way.
Yeah, you start and then you go, do you mean the concept of comedy or stand-up comedy or making people laugh?
It's about comedy and you. So it can be as personal to your experience of performing it or as a concept, or you can rewrite the dictionary definition. It's where does your instinct take you?
What's your definition?
Well,
how would you say?
When I am interviewed on my 200th episode, I will give an answer.
Okay, perfect. I would sum up comedy as being, like, honestly, the reason to live is the right. Do you know what I mean? I just think every day I wake up and not like I try to be a silly goose, but I have this inherent need to try and make the people around me laugh and feel better about a situation. Not every day. I have down days. I have bad days, but it's such a joy to know that you're in a bad situation and you're having a shit time. You've just missed the bus. You're standing with your friend. It starts to rain. It's awful, but you go, great day out here. And being able to make someone laugh in like the lowest place is the best thing in the world. Is going, oh, we could have had a shit time, but instead we're having a good time. We're choosing to like make this a positive thing. And laughter. Like, I don't know what the purpose of life is, but the only thing that can keep you going is being able to have a fun time and making others want to have a fun time. And that's why I'm all for comedy that's, punches in the right direction and is silly and is surprising. Because I think comedy should be a space where everyone feels comfortable to come and have a seat and listen to it and have a good time. And not everything is going to be for you, but at least like you can see what they're going for. And yeah, comedy just makes it all bearable, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, especially like right now we're on the cusp of World War III and environmental damage, and you're just like, God, that's terrible. What can I do? And you got to be able to have a sense of humor about life, because it can throw some crazy things at you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So why not talk about goat fisting?
Exactly. Exactly. Right off the top. Let's open with that.
Kate, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been a joy.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to see you again.